Chapter 55 The Attack. Wild Mountain Meadow made the robot nervous. While hiking through them, she felt exposed and easy to spot. Camouflage helped. But it was hard to notice a walking clump of wild flowers, especially when accompanied by a goose. And it was one of those wild meadows. The trouble caught up with our friends. From the corner of her eyes, raw upset, she turned and only saw grass blowing in the breeze. Then a twig snapped, but the sound of swallowed by a distant roll of thunder. It wasn't until the wind changed a musky scent wafted by the robot and understood danger. "I smell wolves," said Roz. Brightbill's eyes grew big and round, and she whispered back, "What should we do?" Before Roz could reply, two wolves leaped out from the brush. They charged toward the robot, snarling and snapping their jaws. Roz heaved her son toward the sky so that he could fly to safety, and then she burst into a sprint. Roz zigged and zagged across the meadow, trying to shake off the wolf. But she dashed through a patch of soft ground. She sit at the top of the wet. The wolves quickly surrounded their prey, and low ears drawn back in a deep growls, rumbling through their teeth. "Remember us, Roz?" The huge male with scar. "Hello again, Shadow," said the robot, slowly getting to her feet. "And I believe your name is Barb. You have a good memory," said the female wolf. "Actually, you have perfect memory." "You have perfect memory," said the robot. "And yet you've forgotten your rifle." A toothy smile appeared on Shadow's face. "You aren't so tough without your rifle, are you?" Barb sniffed the breeze. "Where's your pet goose?" And she saw Brightbill perched on a lone tree in the middle of the meadow. "He's not my pet," said Roz. "He's my son." Shadow chuckled. "We've heard stories about the robot mother and son. The goose. They were very touching." He turned and barked, "Join us, Brightbill. We'd love to meet you up close." "Stay where you are, son," hollered Roz. "Stay where you are, son," hollered Roz. "I will take care of them." "You'll take care of us?" growled Shadow. "No, Barb and I will take care of you." The robot's computer brain hummed as it tried to make a plan. The wolves were stalking towards her, and any second now they'd attack. Roz had to do something. Shadow, Barb, is it just the two of you?" Roz scanned the meadow and saw no other wolves. "Where's the rest of your pack?" "Well, that was a wrong question to ask, but our fur." Because the fur on Shadow's back stood up and shone. "This is my pack now." Then the wolves pounced. But Roz wasn't there. With all her strength in her legs, the robot launched herself up and away. And now she was soaring through the air in a long, graceful arc. One of her feet stomped back to the ground. She launched herself back up, and away with a giant, arcing strides. The robot bounced across the meadow in the direction of her son. At first, the wolves was baffled by the robot's strange escape, but they weren't hunters. They raced after her, studying her, watching where she landed. As Roz made her final leap towards Brightbill's tree, a heavy paw nodded her off balance. She tumbled through the air and slammed against the trunk. Leaves shook, dead branches crashed down. But the robot heeled to the tree. "Are you okay, Mom?" said the goose in her foot to her mom. "Just some light scrapes," said the robot. She pulled herself on a sturdy branch. Below the tree, the wolves were howling with laughter. "Nice try, Roz," said Shadow. But you can't outturn us. Wolves are built for chasing. You are wasting your time, said the robot. You cannot eat me, and you will never catch my son. You still don't get it, Roz, growled the wolf. I'm not hunting for food. I'm hunting you for revenge. Chapter 56, The Torch. Our friends were stuck in that tree. They sat in upper branches high above the wolves, trying to calculate and escape. Brightbill could fly off whenever he'd like, but Roz had to come down eventually. And when she did, the wolves were ready to attack. Barb and Shadow stretched out. Shadow and Barb stretched out in the shade. They glanced around, licking their fur and sniffing the mountain air. The wolves looked comfortable, and yet their tension between them. I'm hungry, growled Barb. I want to eat rabbits and deer, or maybe I'll go back to the farm and live on prey stock. Livestock. Anything better than hunting a creature that can't be eaten? Thing is better than hunting a creature that can't be eaten. You can eat all the animals you like, said Shadow, after we kill the robot. Barb grumbled with frustration. She didn't understand Shadow's needs for the revenge, but now she stayed loyal to her mate. Day turned night, and the wolf started yawning. Barb's eyelids became heavy. Shadow's body became weary. Then a song cricket lullabied them both to sleep. The sight of a sleeping wolf reminded Roz of the long winter nights on the island, when wild animals crawled into their warm home and slept. She remembered the frightened look on their eyes when they saw fire for the first time. And this gave Roz an idea. Quietly, she broke off a dead branch from her tree trunk. Then she took a lighter from her tool belt and the flame branch naughtily blazing, and then she dropped down to the ground. Shadow and Barb snapped awake to find the world bathed in the orange light. Towering above them looked like a demon, but it was the robot. Her eyes were glowing, her mouth was roaring. In her hand was a torch. The flames rippling, ember whirling into the air. The wolves had never seen fire. It was beautiful. And this was swirling with light. It was dangerous. The instinct told them to run for their lives, and when Roz lunged toward them, they ran. Barb yelled, Shadow whimpered, and the two wolves raced away from the fire as fast as they could. Chapter 57, The Stone. At first light, Roz nudged Brightbill awake, and the travelers continued north through the mountain. The goose stood on his mother's shoulders and marched. His eyes darted around nervously searching for any sign of the wolves. But the wolves were gone, and our friend turned their attention to a new problem. The weather is always changing. Roz and Brightbill had seen many calm, sunny days. Sunny turned to wind or fog or sleet, even snow. Our friend expected bad weather, so they hardly noticed it when a heavy rainfall came sweeping down a valley. But there was something odd about the rain. Brightbill squinted at outcoming storm and said, Ma, why is the rain bouncing off the ground? Bouncing rain? That didn't seem right. The Roz computed her brain. That was not rain, she said. It's hail. Cling, a hailstone bounced off of Roz's chest. Another one swooshed in the weeds. Then the sky opened up and hailstones were everywhere. They tore through leaves and branches and chided off rocks and roots. They flattened flowers and bushes. To the robot, hailstones were annoying. To the goose, they were deadly. A stone hit Brightbill's shoulder, and he fell to the ground. Ross scooped him up, hunching over him to protect him. But the hailstones might kill the poor bird if they couldn't cover soon. Frantically, the robot scanned the area for any type of shelter. And there it was, on the far side of the valley, beside a winding river. It was a cabin. It was old and shabby, but it had a roof, and that's what our friends needed the most. Ross held her son close, pumped her legs, and thundered across the valley. Heavy hailstones hissed into the grass and squeaked into the mud and clanged off our robot. There was a soft thump, and Brightbill cried out in pain. Roz bounded over the rushing river in a single leap without breaking stride and kept running. Now she could hear hailstone cracking against the cabin, louder and louder. The robot stomped up into the front door and turned the handle, stepped inside. Chapter 58, The Cabin.